here is how I went from constantly overriding what I knew was true and shaping my life around who I thought I was supposed to be, to creating a life that genuinely feels like mine, without spending years trying to fix myself or become a better version of who I am. Because the real problem was never that I didn't know better. I already knew far more than I was allowing myself to live. Most people believe the life they want comes from fixing themselves. Nothing could be further from the truth. You don't move closer to the life you want by constantly improving yourself. You move closer when your mind, body, and heart stop pulling in different directions. Because that's where life becomes complicated. Your mind says one thing, and your body feels another, and your heart quietly wants something else. And slowly you stop trusting what feels true for you. Not because the truth disappeared, but because you've lost contact with the parts of yourself that already know it. And that's what begins changing when your mind, body, and heart start moving in the same rhythm again. Life stops being something you constantly try to figure out and becomes the most exciting part of experiencing reality. And the best part is that you don't need years of searching or reinventing yourself to get there. Because most of what the personal development and spiritual world teaches only works with parts of your system. Personal development focuses on the mind. Think better, build better habits, make smarter decisions. And spiritual work focuses on the heart. Follow your intuition. Trust what feels aligned. Surrender to what feels true. But the human experience is bigger than the mind or the heart alone. Because if your body cannot hold what your heart feels, and your mind cannot trust what your body senses, the change never stabilizes. Something deeper is still missing. The layer that reconnects your inner system with the reality you actually live in. In this video, I'm going to show you what happens when your mind, body, and heart begin moving in the same rhythm again, and how what once felt confusing begins revealing the natural path towards a life that finally feels like it's yours. This journey isn't for everyone. It's not for those looking for a dramatic breakthrough or a moment that suddenly changes everything. It's not for those who want someone else to tell them who they should become. Creatrix is also not built for urgency, optimization, or performance. Because this work isn't about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about restoring the relationship with who you already are. Creatrix is for women who feel something inside them is asking for a different rhythm. Women who have built a life that works on the outside, but sense that something inside them wants to move differently, where there are parts of themselves still waiting to participate. Women who are capable, responsible, and often the one others rely on, yet sense that what they have built was created from only a part of who they are. If you know that feeling, you probably also know it won't change by itself. Because what you're craving isn't more advice, strategies, or tools. It's to feel your life again, naturally. And that shifts. That shift begins the moment your heart, body, and mind start moving together again. My search for healing began long before I worked with others. I grew up in an unstable environment, and like many people who grow up that way, I learned early how to adapt. I learned to read a room quickly, to study the atmosphere, to hold things together when life felt uncertain. Later, that sensitivity became the doorway into my work. 14 years ago, I founded my first wellness company. But what interested me was never just a method. It was a question that would not leave me. Why is it that some people eventually step into their creative power, while others feel their genius inside them, but never quite bring it into the world? So I started studying the world of personal transformation, somatic practices, therapy, coaching, retreats, anything that promised deeper change. In that world, the assumption was simple. If something in your life is not working, it means something inside you needs to be improved. And if life still does not feel aligned yet, it means there's more work to do. So I kept learning, practicing, investing in the next approach that promised greater freedom. And many of these methods were powerful, but over time, I started noticing something. The changes did not always last. When pressure returned, many people slipped back into the same patterns they had tried to leave behind. And around that time, my own search led me deeper into spiritual spaces, ceremonies, energy work, meditation practices. And there I found another language for growth. Here the idea was not improvement, but elevation. Become lighter, more aware, more conscious. But when I looked closely, I realized something surprising. The structure was still the same. There was still effort, still pressure, still the quiet assumption that who you are right now is not quite enough. It was the same adaptation, only expressed in different words. That realization changed everything. Because when we look at nature, transformation does not actually happen through improvement. Nature does not force change. It reorganizes. A caterpillar does not become a butterfly by trying harder to become one. Inside the chrysalis, the entire organism dissolves. Cells reorganize. And from that process, something entirely new emerges. This is not transformation. It is metamorphosis. A deeper process that happens in its own rhythm, often in the dark when the conditions allow it. The intelligence for change is already present within the organism. What is often missing is the environment that can hold the process long enough for reorganization to occur. A space where the full range of human experience can exist. Clarity and confusion, courage and fear, desire and uncertainty, without pressure to resolve anything too quickly. And over time, I began shaping a different kind of container, not a method that fixes people, not another path of self-improvement, but a field that reduces interference, so the intelligence that is already present inside a person can begin moving again. And at first, it felt almost too simple to trust, because we're conditioned to believe growth requires effort. Here's the truth. Most personal development teaches people to improve themselves. In spiritual spaces, the message flips. They tell you to follow your heart, trust your intuition, but both approaches miss something. When life is guided only by the mind, everything becomes effort. And when life is guided only by the heart, people often feel what is true, but struggle to live it. Your system begins pulling in different directions. What I discovered is that the way your life unfolds is shaped by 3 internal rhythms that are always speaking to each other: your mind, your body, and your heart. When they move in different directions, life begins to feel confusing. But when they move together, something shifts. The mind becomes clear, the body relaxes, and the heart opens again. And life begins moving in the direction that is actually true for you. That's why the Creatrix journey exists. It's not therapy. It's not another method of self-improvement. Because the life that feels like yours was never meant to be forced. It emerges when your system finds its rhythm again. Every woman who enters the Creatrix journey begins with her inner compass, a living navigation system that reveals how her unique inner world actually moves. It's not a plan to follow, and not a framework telling you who to become. It maps the way your system works. It shows you how you actually function, not how you think you should. And with that compass, you step into an immersive 3-phase journey where life stops being something you constantly manage and becomes something you consciously create. Phase 1 begins in a place many capable women know extremely well. Life works. You are the one people rely on, the one who keeps things moving, the one who knows how to hold everything together. Yet somewhere along the way, the ease that once accompanied living quietly disappears. Without noticing it at first, a different habit takes over. Constant adjustment. You begin shaping yourself around what keeps everything running smoothly. Most women call this responsibility. But in this phase, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. And for years, this looked like strength, competence, emotional intelligence. But underneath that appearance, something else has been happening. Your mind has been negotiating constantly. Your body has been carrying the strain of holding everything together. Your heart has learned to stay quiet about what it actually knows. And once this structure begins to loosen, the change is unmistakable. You realize the problem was never you. What once looked like personal inadequacy was simply adaptation, practiced for so long, it began to feel like who you are. And with that shift, something unexpected returns. The sense that your life is finally beginning to move from the inside out, rather than being constantly negotiated from the outside in. Phase 2 begins where life starts feeling alive again, not in some grand cinematic way, but in the quiet moments. Something inside you has begun saying yes again. Energy begins returning in ways that are impossible to fake. Your mind stops arguing with every direction life could take. Your body begins carrying expansion instead of pressure. And your heart no longer hides the things it quietly wanted for years. What becomes visible in this phase is not ambition in the usual sense. It is something far more powerful. It's the realization that when your mind, body, and heart move in the same direction, creation becomes inevitable. Energy naturally organizes itself around what is alive, rather than around what is expected. And with that shift, an entirely different experience of living returns. The feeling that your life is no longer something you're struggling to hold together. It becomes something that is finally moving through you. Phase 3 begins when the search finally stops running your life. The constant effort to monitor yourself disappears. You stop checking whether you are doing things the right way. You begin trusting your own presence, and the difference shows up immediately. You respond instead of reacting. Life becomes something you meet directly, rather than something you manage from a distance. This is where connection becomes easier, because when you stop performing, people finally meet the real person in the room. Your relationship with yourself transforms even more. You look in the mirror, and there's no quiet voice asking whether you should be different. You like the person you see, not because you perfected her, but because you finally stopped negotiating with her. You move through the world without carrying the constant weight of self-correction. Your playfulness returns. You laugh more easily. You try things without needing them to prove anything. You are no longer living in yesterday's mistakes or tomorrow's expectations. And from that place, a quiet but undeniable truth settles in. You are not becoming yourself anymore. You are living as who you already are. When the Creatrix journey began opening to women, something remarkable kept happening. Every time a woman stepped into this space with honesty, her life began reorganizing itself. I remember one woman, Sophia. For years she had enormous potential, the kind of woman people describe as capable of anything. But her life was living in possibilities instead of direction. From the outside, she looked capable, but inside it felt like standing in front of 100 doors and never quite walking through one. Inside the Creatrix journey, something shifted. And what surprised her most was not the clarity itself. It was how many small decisions began changing because of it. She's no longer waiting to arrive somewhere before she allows herself to enjoy it. And that is what happens again and again inside the Creatrix journey. Women who once felt like they were circling their lives begin stepping directly into them. If something in this conversation resonates, pay attention to that. Because most women I work with don't lack clarity. You already know more than you allow yourself to follow. The real challenge isn't knowing, it's having the courage to live by what you know. And that requires something deeper than confidence. It requires loyalty to yourself. Inside the Creatrix journey, change happens through experience, not advice. And so every 2 weeks, you enter a guided immersion. These sessions open deeper layers of your system in a contained way, allowing hidden patterns to surface. Between immersions, weekly tunings help stabilize what is already shifting. Throughout the process, your inner compass becomes clearer. You begin recognizing your own signals, what feels true, what drains you, and what actually supports the life you want to live. That is the work of the Creatrix journey, not teaching you what to do, but strengthening the part of you that already knows. Until living by your truth stops feeling risky and starts feeling natural. If you feel the signal to explore this work, you can book a connection call, a focused conversation that brings you into direct contact with what is actually true for you. This is not coaching or advice. It is a precise dialogue designed to clarify what is really happening in your life and what, if anything, would support you next. Because the truth is simple. You don't need to be told who to become. You already know far more than you allow yourself to live. The only question is whether you keep managing life the way you always have, or take a moment to explore what could be different. You will always end with clarity after our connection call, whatever you decide. Clarity about what is actually true for you. Clarity about what could become possible. And clarity whether this journey is the right next step.